Are you pregnant again? We don't have money for another child. Michael Thompson felt his world collapse when he saw the pregnancy test on the kitchen table. His heart raced, and his hands began to tremble. It couldn't be. It just couldn't be. Jennifer, tell me this isn't what I think it is. His voice came out louder than he intended. His wife was sitting in the kitchen chair, her hands resting on her still, discreet belly. She looked at him with that serene expression he knew so well, but which at that moment seemed out of place with reality. Michael, I know we weren't planning this, but— Planning? He interrupted, putting his hands to his head. Jennifer, we can barely pay our bills with the triplets. You know that. You see the bills that come every month. The three girls, Emma Grace, Olivia Rose, and Ava Elizabeth, were playing on the living room floor with their favorite bowls, completely unaware of the storm brewing between their parents. They were only 3.5 years old, and each of them was a little force of nature that demanded attention, care, and resources that were already stretched thin. I work 12 hours a day, Michael continued, his voice breaking. I wake up at 5 in the morning, come back at 8 at night, and still at the end of the month I look at the bank account and see red. How are we going to have another child? Jennifer remained calm, although her eyes began to glisten with held-back tears. I didn't plan this, Michael, but it happened, and now I need you to be with me, not against me. Be with you. He let out a bitter laugh. I've been with you for 7 years. I was with you when we found out it was triplets, and all the doctors said it would be impossible to support 3 babies at once. I was with you when my salary was cut in half during the pandemic, and yet we didn't let the girls go without anything. But this, Jennifer, this is too much. He started pacing back and forth in the kitchen, his suit wrinkled after a full day of work. Michael was 32 years old, but at that moment he seemed to carry the weight of a lifetime on his shoulders. He worked as an administrative manager at a logistics company in Philadelphia, and his salary, which once seemed enough for a childless couple, now barely covered the basic needs of a family of 5. You need to understand my position. He tried to calm down, but frustration overflowed. It's not that I don't want this baby. It's that I don't know how we're going to manage. And you think I do? For the first time, Jennifer's voice trembled. You think I don't think about that every day? That I don't lie awake at night calculating the cost of every diaper, every bottle, every doctor's visit? The triplets started making noise in the living room, and Jennifer got up with difficulty, her 4-month belly already starting to show. Michael watched the movement and felt a pang of guilt. She was pregnant, she needed support, and there he was, putting more pressure on her shoulders. Jen, I don't want to fight, he said softer. But you have to admit, the situation is complicated. I know it's complicated, she replied, going to the living room to check on the girls. What I don't know is what alternative you're suggesting. Michael fell silent. He had no alternative. He had no solution. He only had fear. Fear of not being able to handle it. Fear of failing as a father and as a provider. Fear of seeing his daughters go without because he wasn't capable of doing enough. I'm going to take a shower, he murmured, going up the stairs. Jennifer watched her husband climb, each step seeming heavier than the last. She knew that man. She knew his fears, his insecurities, and she knew that beneath all that anger, there was only desperation. But she also had her own fears. Fear of raising 4 daughters alone if Michael decided it was too much. Fear of not being enough. Fear that their marriage wouldn't survive yet another trial. Emma Grace approached her mother, tugging at the hem of her blouse. Mummy, is Daddy mad? Jennifer knelt down with difficulty, coming down to her daughter's level. No, sweetheart, Daddy's just tired. It'll pass. But she wasn't sure it would pass. Not this time. That night, Michael and Jennifer slept in silence, each turned to their side of the bed, an invisible chasm growing between them. The 2-bedroom apartment they lived in seemed to be getting smaller and smaller. The triplets shared one room, and the baby on the way would have to share space with the parents. There was no way to expand, there was no way to improve. Everything seemed to be closing in around them. The next morning, Michael left early as always, without having breakfast. Jennifer heard the door slam and felt her heart tighten. She got the girls ready for daycare, a process that always took at least an hour between tantrums, changing clothes, and negotiations about which shoes to wear. The public daycare was 3 blocks away, and Jennifer made the trip on foot every day. That morning, with the extra weight of her pregnancy and her heart heavy from the previous night's argument, every step seemed more difficult. "Mrs. Jennifer, is everything okay?" asked Margaret, the daycare coordinator, upon seeing her arrive with the girls. Margaret was 63 years old, with greying hair pulled back in a low bun and that attentive look of someone who had seen a lot in life. She had worked at that daycare for over 20 years and knew every family, every story, every struggle. "I'm fine, Mrs. Margaret." Jennifer tried to smile, but she couldn't fool the older woman. "Come have some coffee with me after the girls go in." It wasn't an invitation, it was a gentle order. 10 minutes later, Jennifer was sitting in the small coordinator's office, holding a cup of coffee while Margaret watched her carefully. "You're pregnant again." It wasn't a question. Jennifer nodded, tears finally escaping. "And Michael isn't taking it well. He's terrified, Mrs. Margaret. We can barely pay the bills. How are we going to have another child?" Margaret sighed, leaning her elbows on the table. "Dear, I raised 4 children on my husband's teacher's salary and what I made here at the daycare. It wasn't easy. There were months when we ate rice with eggs because we didn't have money for anything else. But you know what I learned? That we find a way with money. What we can't fix is when there's a lack of love and unity. But what if it doesn't work out? What if we can't manage?" "What if you can?" Margaret countered. "Have you thought about that? That maybe you're stronger than you think? That maybe this baby is exactly what you need to bring you even closer." Jennifer wanted to believe those words, but the financial reality weighed too heavily. She knew exactly how much it cost to raise a child because she lived that reality every day. Diapers, milk, clothes, medicine, toys, food, daycare. The list never ended, and the numbers never added up. "Michael will understand." Margaret placed her hand over Jennifer's. "Give him time. When men get scared, they react with anger. But deep down, he loves you and the girls. That I can see from a mile away." Jennifer thanked her and left, but Margaret's words echoed in her mind. Would everything really work out? Or was she being naive to believe that love was enough when the bills didn't get paid? Meanwhile, Michael was at his desk in the office, staring at the computer screen without really seeing anything. His boss, Robert, a 50-year-old man with a prominent belly and always loud voice, had just left his office after informing him that there would be no salary increase that year. "The company is going through a period of adjustment, Michael. You understand, right?" were his words. Michael understood, yes. He felt trapped. Trapped in a low-paying job, trapped in a small apartment, trapped in a situation that only got worse. And now, with another child on the way, the prison felt even smaller. His phone vibrated. It was a message from his mother, Mrs. Barbara. "Son, it's been a while since you've come over for lunch. Bring Jennifer and the girls on Sunday. I miss you." Michael sighed. His mother had lived alone since his father passed away 5 years ago, a victim of a heart problem. She received a modest pension and lived in a simple little house in the Cedar Heights neighborhood. Whenever Michael visited her, she tried to give him money to help with his daughters, and he always refused, even when the temptation to accept was strong. He typed a quick reply confirming the lunch and went back to staring at his computer screen. Spreadsheets, reports, numbers. Everything came down to numbers, and the numbers were never enough. During lunch, Michael left the office and wandered aimlessly through the streets of downtown Philadelphia. The movement of people, the noise of cars, everything seemed distant. He stopped in front of a baby store window and felt his stomach churn. Strollers, cribs, tiny clothes. Everything so expensive. Everything so out of reach. His phone rang. It was Jennifer. "Hi," he answered, his voice neutral. "Hi, did you have lunch?" "Not yet." "Michael, we need to have a real talk. It can't go on like this." "I know, but now's not the time, Jen. I'm at work." "When will it be the time?" she asked, and he could hear the frustration in her voice. "You leave early, come back late, barely look at me. We need to face this together." "Face what, Jennifer?" he snapped, low enough not to draw attention on the street, but with enough intensity to make his frustration clear. "Do you want me to pretend everything's fine? That we have money to spare? That another child won't sink us for good?" There was silence on the other end of the line. "I just wanted you to support me," she said, her voice thin. "That's all." "I'm trying, Jen, but it's hard to support when all I see is another bill, another responsibility, another mouth to feed." "So that's how you see our children, as bills, as responsibilities?" "That's not what I meant." "But it's what you said." She hung up before he could respond. Michael stared at the phone, feeling a mix of anger and guilt. He didn't want to hurt her. He didn't want to be that kind of person, but the pressure was too great, and he didn't know how to handle it. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. When Michael got home that night, it was past 9. The girls were asleep, and Jennifer was in the kitchen cleaning up the dinner mess. She didn't greet him when he came in. She just kept washing the dishes, her movements mechanical and tired. "Jen," he started, but she raised her hand, asking for silence. "No, Michael, not today. I'm too tired for another fight." "I don't want to fight. I want to talk." "Talk?" She turned around, her eyes red. "Do you know how to talk? Because so far, all you've done is blame me for being pregnant as if I did this alone." "I'm not blaming you." "Yes, you are. You might not say it in words, but your eyes say it. Your silence says it. Every time you look at me and look away, you're blaming me." Michael opened his mouth to protest but closed it again. She was right. He knew she was right. He was blaming her even without meaning to. He was blaming her for a situation that was both their responsibility. "I'm sorry," he murmured, sitting at the table. "I don't want it to be like this. I just don't know what to do, Jen. I'm lost." She dried her hands on the dish towel and sat down across from him. For the first time in days, they were truly looking at each other. "I'm lost too," she admitted. "I'm scared too. But the difference is I don't have a choice. This baby is growing inside me and I need to move forward, with or without you." The words hit Michael like a punch to the gut. With or without him. Was she really considering going it alone? "Are you thinking of leaving me?" "I don't know what I'm thinking." Jennifer ran her hands over her face. "I just know I can't keep feeling alone in a marriage. It's not fair to me, and it's not fair to the girls." "I don't want you to feel alone. I never wanted that. But that's how I feel. You work all day, come home exhausted, barely play with the girls, barely talk to me. And when we try to talk, it turns into a fight. It wasn't like this before, Michael. We used to be happy." He remembered the early years of marriage, when they still lived in an even smaller apartment, but everything felt lighter. They laughed together, planned the future together, dreamed together. When the triplets were born, it was hard, but they were united. They faced everything hand in hand. When did that change? At what point did they stop being a team and become two castaways clinging to different pieces of the same wreck? "I want to be happy again," he said, his voice breaking. "I just don't know how." Jennifer reached her hand across the table and he held it. It was a simple gesture but loaded with meaning. It was the first gentle touch between them in days. "We can do this," she said, though her voice betrayed uncertainty. "We always managed before." But could they really? Or was that just another empty promise they made each other to postpone the inevitable? On Sunday, as promised, they went to have lunch at Mrs. Barbara's house. The house was small, but always smelled nice and felt welcoming. The table was set with an embroidered tablecloth, and the dishes she saved for special occasions. The triplets ran to hug their grandmother as soon as they entered, and Mrs. Barbara welcomed them with warm kisses and hugs. "Oh, my beautiful granddaughters," she exclaimed, pinching each one's cheeks. "You've grown so much, you look like young ladies." Michael and Jennifer sat at the table, while Mrs. Barbara finished preparing lunch. The smell of roast chicken and baked rice filled the house, and for the first time in days Michael felt a little peace. "Mom, you didn't have to go to all this trouble," he said, knowing that this lunch had probably consumed a good part of her monthly budget. Oh, son, doesn't a mother cook for her children? Don't be silly. She brought a steaming platter and placed it in the center of the table. Now tell me, how are things? Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances. Mrs. Barbara didn't miss the gesture. What is it? Did something happen? It's nothing, Mom. Michael tried to deflect. Michael Thompson, I didn't raise you to lie to me. What's going on? Jennifer took a deep breath and decided to speak. Mrs. Barbara, I'm pregnant. The silence that followed was heavy. Mrs. Barbara looked from her daughter-in-law to her son, and then back to her daughter-in-law. A slow smile formed on her face. That's wonderful. No, Mom, it's not, Michael interrupted. We can barely make ends meet with the triplets. How are we going to have another child? Mrs. Barbara's smile disappeared, replaced by a serious expression Michael knew very well. It was the expression she made when she was about to give a moral lesson. Sit down and listen to me carefully, she pointed to the chair. When your father got me pregnant with you, we had nothing. Absolutely nothing. We lived in a wooden shack, no running water, no electricity. Your father worked carrying boxes at the market and I took in laundry. There were days we only ate once. But you know what? We were happy. Because we had love. Because we had unity. But, Mom, times were different. Times were worse. She slammed her hand on the table. You have a house. You have jobs. You have health. You have much more than we ever had. The difference is you keep comparing yourselves to those who have more instead of being thankful for what you have. Michael lowered his eyes. She was right, as she always was. Son, I know it's hard. I know money is tight. But a child isn't measured in money. If they were, we never should have had you. And look what a man you've become. Hard-working, honest, a good father, a good husband. I'm not a good father or a good husband, Michael murmured. Not lately. Then be better, she said, just like that. Do you think being a father is about money? It's about being present. It's about hugging, kissing, playing. It's about making your children feel loved. The rest, we'll figure out. Jennifer had tears in her eyes. Mrs. Barbara stood up and hugged her daughter-in-law. And you, my dear, are stronger than you think. You'll make it. Both of you will make it. Because you have each other, and that's more valuable than any money. The triplets, who were playing in the living room, came running into the kitchen, sensing something important was happening. Emma Grace climbed onto her father's lap, Olivia Rose onto her mother's lap, and Ava Elizabeth stood between them, holding both their hands. Daddy sad? Asked Ava Elizabeth, her big brown eyes fixed on her father's face. Michael picked her up, hugging all three girls along with his wife. In that moment, surrounded by his family, he felt something shift inside him. It wasn't that the problems had disappeared. Money was still tight, the bills were still there, the fear still lingered, but there was something stronger than all that. There was love. There was family. Daddy isn't sad anymore, he said, kissing each daughter's head. After lunch, while the girls played in the backyard under Mrs. Barbara's watchful eye, Michael and Jennifer were alone on the porch. I'm sorry, he said, for the first time truly looking into her eyes. Sorry for everything. For being a coward, for leaving you alone, for thinking only about money. And I'm sorry for not understanding your side, she replied. I know the pressure on you is great. I know you carry the weight of supporting the family. But it shouldn't be just my burden. It's ours. Both of us. Together. She smiled, and it was as if the sun had finally come out after a long storm. Together, she repeated. They kissed, a gentle kiss full of promises. Promises that they would improve, that they would fight, that they would overcome this together. But reality didn't change just because they decided to unite. In the following weeks, the bills kept coming, and money remained insufficient. Jennifer started having stronger morning sickness and had to reduce her activities. Michael began looking for extra work, doing deliveries on weekends with their old car. It was during one of these deliveries that he met Mr. Stanley, a 72-year-old man who was moving to a smaller apartment. Mr. Stanley was a widower and was getting rid of most of the furniture he had shared with his wife for 50 years. You're too young to have that tired look, the old man commented as Michael loaded a dresser. "Life of a father, Mr. Stanley." Michael tried to laugh. "How many kids?" "3 triplets, and 1 more on the way." Mr. Stanley whistled. "4 kids. That's a blessing, young man." "Sometimes it feels more like a curse," Michael confessed without thinking. The old man stopped arranging boxes and stared intently at the young man. "Do you know what my biggest regret in life is?" he asked. "It's not having had more children. My wife could only have 1, and he moved to Chicago 15 years ago. I hardly ever see my grandson. I spend my days alone in this apartment, staring at the walls, waiting for the phone to ring. You have 4 children. There's a full house, there's noise, there's mess, there's life, and here you are complaining." Michael felt ashamed. Ashamed for having complained. Ashamed for not appreciating what he had. "You're right. I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me. Enjoy your children, because one day they'll grow up and leave, and you'll be wondering where the time went." Those words kept hammering in Michael's head all the way back home. When he arrived, it was already nighttime, but instead of going straight up to shower as he usually did, he went to the girls' room. The 3 were sleeping soundly, each in her own bed, their faces peaceful and innocent. He stood there motionless, just watching. Emma Grace had hair just like her mother's, curly and unruly. Olivia Rose had inherited his full lips. Ava Elizabeth had a dimple on her left cheek that appeared when she smiled. Each was unique. Each was perfect. And he had been so busy worrying about money that he was missing these moments. That night, when he lay down next to Jennifer, he hugged her from behind, his hand resting on her belly. "Hi, baby," he whispered. "Daddy here. Sorry it took me so long to say this, but you're welcome. Very welcome." Jennifer turned to him, surprised and emotional. "Are you serious?" "Completely. It won't be easy, but we'll manage. Because we're strong. We're a family." She kissed him, and for the first time in weeks they made love. It wasn't just sex. It was a reconnection, a silent renewal of vows, a promise that no matter what came, they would be together. But the universe, as it likes to do, had other plans. 2 weeks later, Michael was called into his boss's office. Robert was sitting behind the desk, a serious expression on his face. "Michael, have a seat." Michael's heart raced. He knew that tone. It was the tone of bad news. "The company is going through a restructuring," Robert began, without beating around the bush. "We're going to have to make cuts, and unfortunately your department is one of those affected." "Are you firing me?" Michael asked, feeling the ground disappear beneath his feet. "I'm putting you on notice. You have 30 days. Michael left that office in shock. It couldn't be. Not now. Not when he had finally sorted things out with Jennifer. Not when they had a baby on the way. Not when things finally seemed to be getting better. He spent the rest of the day like a zombie, doing his tasks automatically, while his mind spun in circles. How was he going to tell Jennifer? How were they going to pay the bills? How were they going to survive? When he got home, she immediately noticed something was wrong. "What happened?" He sat on the couch, his head in his hands. "I was laid off." The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer sat next to him, and for a long moment, neither of them said anything. "We'll be okay," she finally said, but her voice betrayed the fear she felt. "How?" He looked at her. "How are we going to be okay, Jen? I'm the only one who works. How are we going to pay rent, food, daycare, everything? We'll figure it out. We always have. But what if this time we can't? What if we lose everything? Then we lose," she said, surprising him. "And we start over, but together, always together." He wanted to believe her. He wanted to have her faith, her strength. But the fear was paralyzing. In the following days, Michael began frantically sending out resumes. He applied to dozens of job openings, went to several interviews, but always heard the same thing. "We'll review your profile and get back to you." The call never came. The severance pay would last a few months if they cut back to the bare minimum. Jennifer started cutting expenses wherever she could. She cancelled streaming subscriptions, reduced grocery shopping, and started cooking even more at home. But even so, the money was draining away like water. One afternoon, while Michael was at home after yet another unsuccessful job interview, the doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Margaret from the daycare centre. "Mrs. Margaret, is something wrong with the girls?" No, the girls are fine. I came here because I need to talk to you both." Jennifer appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands. "Mrs. Margaret, what a surprise. Please come in." They sat in the living room and Margaret got straight to the point. "I heard you were laid off, Michael, and I also know you're having a hard time." Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances, embarrassed. "No need to be ashamed," Margaret continued. "I'm not here to judge. I came to offer help." "We can't accept money, Mrs. Margaret," Michael began, but she raised her hand. "I'm not offering money, I'm offering work." "Work? My husband has a small woodworking shop. He needs someone to help out. It's not a permanent job, no formal contract, but it pays by the day, and it pays well." Michael hesitated. He had never worked with woodworking before. He knew nothing about wood or tools. "I have no experience." "My husband will teach you. He's patient, and you learn fast. I can see that from how you care for your daughters." It was a lifeline, and he wasn't in a position to refuse. "I accept. Thank you very much, Mrs. Margaret." She smiled and stood up to leave. "One thing, Michael. My husband likes people who know how to listen and learn. Put your pride aside and be willing to start from scratch. Can you do that?" "I can," he promised. And so began a new phase in Michael's life. Every day he woke up at 5 in the morning and went to Mr. Richard's woodworking shop, Mrs. Margaret's husband. Richard was a 70-year-old man with calloused hands and a deep knowledge of wood that only came from a lifetime dedicated to the craft. At first, Michael was just a helper. He carried wood, cleaned the space, held pieces while Richard sawed or sanded. But little by little he learned. He learned to read the wood, to understand its textures and strengths. He learned to use tools, to make precise cuts, to create perfect joints. "You have a knack for this," Richard remarked one day, watching Michael work on a drawer. "Steady hands and attention to detail." "Thank you, Mr. Richard. You know, Margaret and I never had children. I always wanted someone to pass my knowledge on to. Maybe you're that person." Michael felt a lump in his throat. This man, who barely knew him, was giving him a chance. He was believing in him when he himself had almost stopped believing. The work at the woodworking shop didn't pay as much as his previous job, but it was enough to get by. Jennifer also started contributing, making cakes to order to sell in the neighborhood. It wasn't much, but every penny counted. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Jennifer's belly grew bigger every day, and with it, a mix of joy and apprehension. She was in her 6th month when she received the news during a routine checkup. "Jennifer, I wanted to talk to you about something," said Dr. Sarah, a 45-year-old obstetrician who was following the pregnancy. "Is the baby okay?" "The baby is great, but I noticed that he's a bit larger than expected for this gestational age. I'm going to order a more detailed ultrasound to be sure." Michael was working at the woodworking shop when he got the call from Jennifer, asking him to meet her at the doctor's office. The tone of her voice alarmed him. He dropped everything and ran. When he arrived, Jennifer was sitting in the waiting room, her hands clasped over her belly, her face pale. "What is it? What happened?" "The doctor wants to do a test. She thinks there might be something different about the baby." "Different how?" "I don't know. She didn't want to say anything until she was sure." They had the test that same afternoon. Dr. Sarah slid the device over Jennifer's belly, her eyes fixed on the screen. Michael held his wife's hand, both of them with their hearts in their mouths. "Look here," the doctor finally said, pointing at the screen. "I was right. It's not that the baby is too big. It's 2 babies." "What?" Jennifer and Michael said at the same time. "Twins. They were one behind the other in the first exams. That's why we couldn't see both. But look there, 2 perfectly healthy babies." Michael felt his legs go weak. 2. Not 1, but 2. They were going from 3 daughters to 6. "Are you sure?" he managed to ask. "Absolutely. Congratulations. You're having twins." They left the office in silence, each processing the information. When they reached the car, Michael simply sat down and started to laugh. A laugh that was half hysterical, half disbelieving. We can't just have one child, we have to have two at once. Jennifer also started to laugh, and soon they were both laughing loudly, tears streaming down their faces. It was absurd, it was impossible, it was the craziest thing that could happen, and yet, somehow, it was perfect. "We're going to need a bigger apartment," Jennifer said between laughs. "We're going to need a bigger planet," Michael replied. When they calmed down, they sat there holding hands. "6 children," she murmured. "6. 6," he repeated. "God must think we're much stronger than we imagine. Or he has a very strange sense of humor." They went back home to pick up the triplets from daycare. Mrs. Margaret noticed something different about them. "What happened? You two have a strange look on your faces." "It's twins," Jennifer blurted out. "It's not one baby, it's 2. Mrs. Margaret's eyes widened, and then a huge smile took over her face. "Good heavens, that's... I don't even have words." "We don't either," Michael admitted. That night, after putting the triplets to sleep, Michael and Jennifer sat at the kitchen table with paper and pen, trying to do the math. How much would it cost to have 2 babies at the same time? How much would they need to save? How to get organized? "We're going to need 2 cribs," Jennifer started listing. 2 car seats. Twice the diapers. Twice the clothes. Twice everything. The list grew, and so did the discouragement, until Michael had an idea. "What if we asked for donations?" "Donations?" "Yeah, we know a lot of people, neighbors, people from daycare, from the woodshop. A lot of people have baby stuff stored away that they don't use anymore. We could ask." It was a good idea. Even better, it was a feasible idea. In the following days, they started spreading the news. And the response was surprising. The neighbor on the 3rd floor had a crib her son had used. Mrs. Margaret's sister had clothes stored away. Mr. Richard knew someone who sold used baby strollers in great condition. Little by little, piece by piece, they assembled the twins' layette. It wasn't new, it wasn't the latest fashion, but it was made with love and solidarity from people who cared. Mrs. Barbara, when she heard the news, cried with joy. 6 grandchildren. "Who would have thought I'd have 6 grandchildren?" She started knitting. Blankets, hats, booties, everything in duplicate. Her hands weren't as agile as before, and the arthritis made movements difficult, but she persisted. Every stitch was made with love. Every piece was a prayer for the baby's health. Michael continued working at the woodshop, and Mr. Richard began teaching him more advanced techniques. One day he showed Michael how to make a crib. "Look here," he said, running his hand over the smooth wood. "A crib has to be strong, it has to be safe, but it also has to have beauty, because it's where your child will sleep. It's where he'll have his first dreams." "Could you teach me how to make one?" Richard smiled. "I was waiting for you to ask. Let's start tomorrow." Over the next few weeks, Michael Thompson dedicated every free minute to building 2 cribs, 1 for each twin. He chose the wood carefully, made each cut with precision, sanded until it was perfect. It was a labor of love, every detail thought out, every corner rounded so it wouldn't hurt. When he finished, he stood admiring his work. 2 identical cribs, simple but beautiful, strong yet delicate. This was more than furniture. It was proof that he could provide for his family, even if not in the traditional way. It was proof that he had value, had skill, had something to offer. "They're beautiful," Jennifer said when he brought the cribs home. "They're perfect." They set up the cribs in the bedroom side by side. The triplets came to see and were amazed. "For the babies?" Emma Grace asked. "For your little brothers," Michael confirmed, scooping up his daughter. "You're going to be big sisters." "We'll take care of them," Olivia Rose exclaimed. "So much," Ava Elizabeth added. Seeing his daughters so excited about their brother's arrival filled Michael's heart with hope. Maybe it would work out. Maybe they really could make it. But life has always had other plans. Jennifer was 7.5 months pregnant when she started feeling strong contractions. It was a Thursday night, and Michael was bathing the girls when he heard a scream from the bedroom. Michael! He left the girls in the tub for a second and ran. Jennifer was holding her belly, her face twisted in pain. Their contractions really strong. It's still too early, he said, trying not to panic. The babies aren't due for 2 more months. I know, but they don't know that, she tried to joke. But another contraction hit her, making her groan. Michael called Mrs. Margaret, who arrived in 10 minutes to stay with the triplets. Then he rushed Jennifer to the hospital. The whole way there, he held her hand, whispering words of comfort, even though he was terrified inside. At the hospital, Dr. Sarah met them urgently. She examined Jennifer and confirmed their fears. Premature labor. We'll try to stop the contractions, but if we can't, the babies will be born today. Will they survive? Jennifer asked, tears in her eyes. They're 7.5 months. The chances are good, but they'll need to stay in the NICU for a while. The next few hours were a blur. Medications, monitors, doctors coming and going. Michael stayed by Jennifer's side the whole time, holding her hand, drying her tears, whispering prayers, even though he wasn't very religious. The contractions didn't stop. At 3 in the morning, the doctors decided it was time. Jennifer was taken to the operating room, and Michael had to wait outside, helpless. 30 minutes later, which felt like an eternity, the door opened and Dr. Sarah appeared. They're 2 boys, small but strong. They're in the NICU now. Michael felt his legs go weak with relief. 2 boys, 2 sons. He had 2 sons. And Jennifer? She's fine, tired, but fine. You can see her in a few minutes. When he was finally allowed in, Jennifer was pale, exhausted, but smiling. We have 2 boys, she said, her voice weak. I know, he kissed her forehead. You were amazing. I want to see them. Soon as the doctors allow. 2 hours later, they could go to the NICU. The 2 babies were in incubators, so small, so fragile, full of tubes and wires. One weighed 3 pounds, 15 ounces, the other 4 pounds, 3 ounces. They're perfect, Jennifer whispered, tears flowing freely. They are, Michael agreed, his voice choked. They couldn't hold them yet. Just look through the glass. But even so, as small and fragile as they were, those 2 boys had already completely won their parents' hearts. What should we name them? Jennifer asked. They had discussed names before, but none had felt right, until that moment. Ethan and Noah, Michael said. Names of angels, because they are our miracles. Ethan and Noah, Jennifer repeated, smiling through her tears. Perfect. The following days were the hardest of Michael's life. Jennifer had to stay in the hospital recovering from the C-section. The triplets stayed with Mrs. Margaret and Mr. Richard, and the twins needed constant care in the NICU. Michael divided his time between the hospital, home, the woodworking shop, and his thoughts. He slept little, ate less, but kept going. Because it was what had to be done, it was what a father does. The hospital bills started arriving. Premature birth, neonatal ICU, tests. The numbers were frightening. Even with the basic health insurance they had, a considerable portion remained to be paid. How are we going to pay for this? Michael asked Jennifer one night, showing her the bills. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Mr. Richard, when he learned of the situation, made a proposal. Michael, I'm getting old. My hands aren't what they used to be. I need a partner. Someone who can run the woodworking shop with me and eventually take over when I no longer can. Mr. Richard, I don't have the money to become a partner. I'm not asking for money. I'm offering a partnership. You work, learn what you don't know yet, and gradually take on more responsibilities. In return, you get 40% of the profits. What do you think? It was an offer too generous to be true, but the honest look in Mr. Richard's eyes left no doubt about his intentions. Why are you doing this for me? Because I see in you the son I never had, and because a good man deserves a chance. Do you accept or not? Michael extended his hand. I accept. They shook hands, sealing a deal that would change Michael's life. For the first time in months, he saw a path. It wouldn't be easy, it wouldn't be fast, but it was a path. Ethan and Noah stayed in the NICU for 3 weeks. Each day was an emotional roller coaster. One day they were fine, gaining weight, breathing better. The next day there was some complication that made the parents hold their breath. But gradually, with the stubborn strength that only premature babies have, they improved. They gained weight, their lungs grew stronger, and finally the day came when Dr. Sarah gave the news everyone was waiting for. "They can go home." Jennifer broke down in tears. Michael hugged her, and together they cried with relief and joy. Their boys were going home. Finally, they were going to be a complete family. On the day they brought Ethan and Noah home from the hospital, the house was full. Mrs. Barbara had prepared lunch. Mrs. Margaret and Mr. Richard were there. The neighbors had hung balloons on the door. It was a simple celebration, but full of love. The triplets were fascinated with their brothers. They wanted to hold them, kiss them, play with them. Michael and Jennifer had to explain many times that the babies were delicate, that they needed care. "They're so tiny," Emma Grace said, amazed. "You were like that too when you were born," Jennifer explained. "And look how you've grown." That night, when everyone had left and the house was finally quiet, Michael and Jennifer sat on the couch. The twins slept in the cribs Michael had built. The triplets were in their rooms. The house was at peace. "We made it," Jennifer said, resting her head on her husband's shoulder. "We made it," he repeated, kissing the top of her head. But they still didn't know that the biggest challenge was yet to come. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The first months with the twins at home were chaotic. Jennifer was on maternity leave, but the money from it barely covered the diapers. The babies woke up every 2 hours to nurse. The triplets were jealous of the attention their brothers were getting. The house was in constant disarray. Michael worked 12 hours a day at the woodshop, trying to produce as much as possible. Mr. Richard was teaching him how to make more complex furniture, and they had managed to secure some good contracts. But the exhaustion was starting to take its toll. One night, Michael came home and found Jennifer crying in the kitchen, the twins crying in their cribs and the triplets fighting in the living room. "I can't take it anymore," she sobbed when she saw him. "I tried. I swear I tried. But it's too much, Michael. It's too much." He hugged her, feeling her despair, feeling his own despair. They were at their breaking point. Something had to change, or they were going to break. "We'll figure something out," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. That night, after everyone had finally fallen asleep, Michael lay staring at the ceiling, unable to rest. He had a beautiful family. He had 6 healthy children. He had a job he enjoyed, but he was exhausted. He was broke. He was about to give up. That's when his phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. "Mr. Michael, this is Patricia from the municipal school. I have a proposal for you. Can we talk tomorrow?" Patricia was the principal of the school where the triplets would be attending the following year. Why would she be contacting him? The next day, he went to the school. Patricia greeted him in her office, a 50-year-old woman with short hair and a determined look. "Mr. Michael, thank you for coming. I'll get straight to the point. Mrs. Margaret told me about your situation. 6 children, including 2 premature babies. I know it can't be easy." Michael felt embarrassed. He didn't like people knowing about his struggles. "We're managing. I'm sure you are. But I'm here to offer help. The school has an affiliated daycare that accepts babies from 4 months old. There's usually a waiting list, but I have 2 spots I can offer for your twins." Michael's eyes widened. "But I can't afford private daycare." "It's subsidized. You'd pay a symbolic fee based on your income, probably less than $100 a month for both." It was too good to be true. But Patricia wasn't lying. She was really offering this opportunity. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I believe in helping families who are struggling, and because Mrs. Margaret told me you're a good man, a dedicated father. Men like that deserve support." Michael felt a lump in his throat. Once again, the kindness of strangers was saving his family. "I accept. Thank you so much." When he shared the news with Jennifer, she cried with relief. "This means I can start baking cakes again. I can take more orders. I can help more." And that's what she did. With the twins in daycare part of the day, Jennifer was able to organize her time better. She started making custom cakes, advertising on social media, and through word of mouth in the neighborhood. Her cakes were delicious, and soon she had more orders than she could handle. "I'm going to need help," she told Michael one evening. "It's getting too big for me to do alone." "What kind of help?" "Someone to help with baking, decorating, and deliveries. I thought about hiring someone for a few hours a week." It was a risk. It meant spending money before they were sure they could make a profit. But it was also an opportunity to grow. "That makes sense. Let's try it." Jennifer hired Ashley, a 23-year-old neighbor who was unemployed. Ashley was fast, meticulous, and had good ideas. Together, they managed to double production. The cake business began to grow. From 5 orders a week, they went to 15. From 15, they went to 30. Jennifer had to rent a shared space in a commercial kitchen to keep up with the demand. In 6 months, what had started as a way to help with expenses had become a real business. Jennifer didn't earn a lot, but she contributed significantly to the family budget. And Michael was also growing. Under Mr. Richards' guidance, he had become a skilled carpenter. His furniture was in demand, and he had a waiting list of clients. The woodworking shop was thriving. 1 year after the twins were born, they found themselves in a situation they never thought possible. They weren't rich, far from it, but they were stable. The bills were paid. There was food on the table. The children were healthy and happy. "Look at us," Jennifer said one night after putting all the children to bed. "A year ago, I thought we wouldn't make it, and look where we are." "We're stronger than we thought," Michael replied, hugging her. "Much stronger." But life, as always, doesn't let us relax for long. Mr. Richard started feeling unwell. Nothing serious at first, just fatigue, some aches, but over time the symptoms worsened. Tests revealed a serious heart problem. He would need surgery, and the recovery would be long. He wouldn't be able to work for months. "The woodworking shop will have to close," he told Michael, visibly shaken. "There's no way around it." "It won't close," Michael replied firmly. "I'll run it alone until you recover." "You can't handle everything by yourself." "Then I'll hire help. Mr. Richard, you gave me a chance when I had nothing. Now it's my turn to give back." And that's what he did. He hired 2 assistants, took over the management of the woodworking shop, and worked more than ever. Days were 15, 16 hours long. His back ached. His hands became calloused, but he didn't give up. Mrs. Margaret, meanwhile, took care of Mr. Richard. The surgery was successful, but the recovery was difficult. He was 71 years old, and his body no longer responded as it used to. "Thank you for taking care of my woodworking shop," he told Michael during a visit. "It's our woodworking shop," Michael corrected, "and it's the least I can do." 3 months later, Mr. Richard returned, still weak, still recovering, but determined. He couldn't work like before, but he could supervise, teach, plan. "You've grown, Michael," he said, observing the woodworking shop that was now more organized and prosperous than ever. "You've become a true carpenter, a true businessman. I learned from the best." That year, something amazing happened. Jennifer's cake business grew so much that she had to open a small shop. Nothing big, just a stall at the Saturday farmers market. But it was hers. It was her business, built with her own hands. And the woodworking shop also prospered. Michael secured larger contracts, started making custom furniture for entire homes. The money coming in allowed them not only to pay the bills, but to start saving. 2 years after the twins were born, they managed to rent a larger apartment. 3 bedrooms. 1 for them, 1 for the girls, 1 for the boys. It wasn't luxury, but it was space. It was comfort. "Remember when I said we didn't have money for another child?" Michael asked Jennifer as they were settling into the new apartment. "I remember," she smiled. "I was wrong. We always had it. It just wasn't money. It was love. It was strength. It was unity. And look what we built with it." They looked around. The triplets were playing in their new room, amazed by the space. The twins were crawling around the living room, exploring every corner. The house wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. It was full of love, noise, and life. Mrs. Barbara visited the new apartment and cried. "I'm so proud of you," she said, hugging her son and daughter-in-law. You've proven that when there's love and determination, anything is possible. But the journey wasn't over yet. It never ends when you have children. There are always new challenges, new problems, new adventures. The triplets started school. Emma Grace was the most studious, always with her head in a book. Olivia Rose was the artist, drawing and painting everything she saw. Ava Elizabeth was the athlete, always running, jumping, full of energy. Ethan and Noah grew up strong, completely overcoming their premature birth. They were different from each other. Ethan was quiet and observant. Noah was talkative and curious, but they were inseparable, as twins often are. In another year, Jennifer discovered she was pregnant again. This time there was no panic, there was no fear, there was only acceptance. 7 children, she said to Michael. Can you believe it? After 6, what's the difference? He laughed. This time it was just one baby, a girl whom they named Lily. And with her the family was finally complete. 7 children, a full house, a full life. The years passed, the children grew up, the woodworking shop prospered, to the point where Michael could buy out Mr. Richards' share when the old man decided to retire completely. Jennifer's cake business expanded, and she opened a small bakery. They never got rich, but they didn't need to. They had enough. They had more than enough. They had love. They had family. They had each other. 10 years after that day when Michael saw the pregnancy test on the table, they were sitting on the porch of their own house, which they had managed to buy with much sweat and sacrifice. The children were playing in the yard. Emma Grace was 13 and dreamed of becoming a doctor. Olivia Rose wanted to be an artist. Ava Elizabeth was the captain of the school's volleyball team. Ethan was learning woodworking from his father. Noah wanted to be a teacher. Lily, at 7 years old, was still figuring out what she wanted to be, but she was sure of one thing. She wanted to be happy. Do you have any regrets? Jennifer asked, watching the children. About what? About everything. The children, the hardships, the sleepless nights, the tight budget. Michael was silent for a moment, thinking. He thought about all the times he almost gave up, all the moments of despair, all the tears shed. I don't regret a thing, he said honestly. It was hard. It was really hard. But it was worth every second, every sacrifice, every moment of fear, because look at what we gained. Look at what we built. 7 beautiful children, she smiled, and a life full of love. They kissed, watching their children. Each one was unique. Each had their own dreams, their own fears, their own quirks. But they all had one thing in common. They were loved, deeply, unconditionally loved. Mrs. Barbara, now 78 years old, still visited regularly. Her health wasn't what it used to be, but her spirit remained strong. She loved sitting on the porch with her grandchildren, telling stories of when Michael was a child, of how things were difficult, but they always found a way. You did better than we did, she said one afternoon. Much better. We just followed your example, Mom, Michael replied. No. You created your own path, and what a beautiful path it is. Mrs. Margaret and Mr. Richard were also constant presences in the family's life. Richard, now 80 years old, no longer worked, but he loved visiting the woodworking shop and seeing what Michael was creating. Margaret still worked at the daycare, though fewer hours, and always had a candy or a toy for her adoptive grandchildren. You are the family we never had, Margaret once said to Jennifer, and we are grateful every day for that. Jennifer's bakery became well known in the neighborhood. She had 5 employees and produced not only cakes, but also savory snacks, breads and sweets. It was a thriving business, and she was proud of what she had built. Remember when I used to make 5 cakes a week in our kitchen? She said to Ashley, who was now her business partner. I do, and I remember you crying because you didn't know if you could pay the bills. And now we're here, with a real store. You deserve it, boss. You worked so hard for this. And she had. All of them had. But the work had been worth it. Every early morning waking up at dawn, every late night going to bed exhausted, every penny saved, every sacrifice made, everything had led to this moment. One day, Michael Thompson was at the woodworking shop when he received an unexpected call. It was from a large furniture company interested in a partnership. They had seen his work and wanted him to produce an exclusive line for them. "It's a big opportunity," he told Jennifer that night, "but it will require me to hire more people, expand the woodworking shop, work with tight deadlines." "And do you want to do it?" Michael thought. Part of him did. He wanted to grow, to build something bigger. But another part, the part that had learned through so much hardship, knew there were more important things than growth and money. "I do," he said, "but not to the point of losing what we have, not to the point of missing dinners with my kids or Ava Elizabeth's games. I'll accept, but at my own pace, at our pace." "Then do it," Jennifer smiled, "and I'll be here supporting you, as always." And so he did. He accepted the partnership, but on his terms. He hired more employees, organized his schedule so he wouldn't give up family time. He grew, but without losing what truly mattered. The triplets reached their teenage years, and with adolescence came new challenges. Emma Grace became obsessed with her studies, putting too much pressure on herself. Olivia Rose began questioning whether art was really a viable path. Ava Elizabeth suffered an injury that kept her out of competitions for months. Each needed a different kind of support, and Michael and Jennifer were there, always, for every tear, for every crisis, for every difficult moment. "How do you do it?" Emma Grace asked one night, after an anxiety attack before an important test. "How do you always know what to say?" "We don't," Jennifer admitted. "We just try, and sometimes we're wrong. But what's important is being present. It's you knowing that no matter what happens, we're here." "You've always been," Emma Grace said, hugging her mother, "and we always will be." The twins started school, and it soon became clear they had very different personalities. Ethan was introverted, preferring to be alone with his books and projects. Noah was extroverted, always surrounded by friends, always involved in some activity. "They're so different," Michael commented to Jennifer. "Hard to believe they're twins. All our children are different, and that's beautiful. Each one is unique." Lily, the youngest, was the most attached to her parents, always nearby, always wanting to help, always needing attention. Jennifer sometimes worried she was being spoiled too much for being the youngest. "She'll grow up," Mrs. Barbara said. "Enjoy it while she still wants to be close to you. Soon adolescence will come and she'll want her distance." And Mrs. Barbara was right. Time passed too quickly, much too quickly. It was on an ordinary day, with nothing special about it, that Michael had a revelation. He was at the woodworking shop, working on a dresser, when he simply stopped and looked around. At the tools he had learned to use, at the furniture he had built with his own hands, at the business he had helped prosper. Then he thought of Jennifer. How much she had grown, how she had built her own business, how she had become an even stronger woman than she already was. He thought about the girls, the young women they were becoming, each with their own dreams, their passions, their strengths. He thought about the boys, how much they had grown, how much more they would grow. And he thought about Lily, the sweet and affectionate child who lit up the house with her presence. All of that had almost not happened. All of that had almost been wasted because he had been afraid, because he had looked at the money instead of looking at what truly mattered. He had almost lost everything. He had almost let fear win. But he didn't. And now, looking back, he saw that every challenge had been worth it. Every difficult moment had served to strengthen. Every tear had watered the garden of a full life. That night, when he got home, he gathered the whole family in the living room. "I have something to say," he began, all the children looking at him with curiosity. "You know that when you were born, especially the twins, I became very afraid. Afraid I couldn't take care of everyone. Afraid I wouldn't be enough." The children fell quiet, paying attention. "But I want you to know that that fear was the biggest foolishness of my life, because you, each one of you, are the greatest blessing I could have received. You made me a better person. You taught me about love, about strength, about what really matters in life." Jennifer had tears in her eyes. "I am not a rich man," he continued. "I probably never will be. I won't be able to give you everything you deserve. But I will give you everything I have. My love, my time, my dedication. And I hope that one day you understand that this has always been enough." Emma Grace stood up and hugged her father. Then Olivia Rose, then Ava Elizabeth, then the twins, then Lily, and finally Jennifer. All hugged in one big family embrace, full of love, full of gratitude, full of life. That night, lying in bed next to Jennifer, Michael finally felt complete peace. Peace with his choices, peace with his life, peace with everything. "Thank you," he said to her. "For what?" "For not giving up on me, for believing in us, for being my partner in everything." "I always will be," she replied, kissing him gently. The years kept passing. The children kept growing. Life kept happening with all its challenges and joys. Emma Grace got into medical school. She got a partial scholarship, and Michael and Jennifer did everything to cover the rest. It wasn't easy, but it was an investment in their daughter's future, and it was worth every penny. Olivia Rose decided to pursue art. She started selling her paintings at local fairs and online. She didn't earn much, but she was happy, and for Michael and Jennifer, that was what mattered. Ava Elizabeth fully recovered from her injury and earned a sports scholarship to a university. It was Michael's proudest day, seeing her go up on stage to receive the scholarship certificate. Ethan continued working with his father in the woodworking shop. He had a natural talent for the craft, and Michael knew that one day the business would be in good hands. Noah decided he wanted to be a teacher. He started giving private lessons to children in the neighborhood, and it was amazing to see how patient and dedicated he was. Lily was still young, but she was already showing signs of having inherited her mother's culinary talent. She loved helping out in the bakery and was already creating her own recipes. One Sunday afternoon, the family was gathered for lunch. It was a monthly tradition, a time when everyone stopped, no matter how busy they were, to be together. The table was full. There was food, there was laughter, there was noise, there was life. "Look at this, Mrs." Barbara, now 85 years old, said to Michael, "Look at everything you've built." "We built it, Mom, all of us." "Yes, but you were the foundation, you and Jennifer. You held firm when everything seemed to be falling apart." Michael looked around the table. Every face was beloved. Every person was important. Each had their place in that family. "I almost didn't hold on," he admitted. "I almost let fear win. But you didn't. And that's the difference between giving up and winning. One step, one choice. You made the right choice." That night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, Michael and Jennifer sat on the couch, exhausted but happy. "Are you happy?" he asked. "More than I ever imagined possible," she replied. "And you?" "Yes, very much." "Any regrets?" He thought for a long moment. "None. Absolutely none." "Not even having 7 children?" "Especially having 7 children." He smiled. "They're what gives meaning to everything." She rested her head on his shoulder, and they stayed like that in comfortable silence, just enjoying the moment. They had been difficult years, years of struggle, of sacrifice, of moments when they didn't know if they would make it. But they had made it. Not because they were special, not because they were lucky, but because they had each other, because they had love, because they had faith in the future, even when the present was dark. And now, looking back, they saw that every difficult moment had been worth it. Every tear had been necessary, every fear had been overcome, and all of it had led to a full life, rich not in money, but in love and meaning. They had proven that family isn't built with money. It's built with love, dedication, sacrifice, and unity, and that was a lesson they would pass on to their children, and that they hoped they would pass on to their children, because in the end, that's what remains. Not money, not material possessions, but love, always love. And as they slept that night, embraced, they knew that no matter what the future brought, they were ready. Together, always together, they could face anything, because they had something more precious than gold. They had a family, and that was the greatest wealth of all. End of story. Now tell me, dear listener, what did you think of this story of Michael and Jennifer? Do you think they made the right decisions? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories like this one.